The oldest parts of the Bible were written about 3,000 years ago. The newest, about 2,000 years ago. A lot has changed in the world since then. So, why do Christians trust the Bible as a guide for life? Why should anyone trust it? We'll talk about that after this. Many of the questions people ask about Christianity have to do with the Bible. Probably the most important question is, why should I trust the Bible? Let me say it another way. Why should I live my life according to a 3,000-year-old book? After all, we have science and the social sciences. We know so many more things about the world today than we ever did. Isn't it just time to move on? Well, that's a great question, and I think it brings up some very important points. But the answer comes when we think about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. If you said to me that we have more knowledge about the world than people did thousands of years ago, or even just 10 years ago, I would completely agree with you. I mean, who could have ever imagined things like the internet, quantum physics, or the human genome just 50 years ago? At the same time, history is full of new ideas and discoveries that at the time seemed like we had finally figured out the truth, only to find out later that we were tragically wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that every new idea is wrong, only that it would serve us well to treat our latest and greatest ideas with a bit of humility. You see, the Bible isn't a book of facts. It's a book of wisdom. Sure, there are facts in the Bible, but the value of the Bible is that it contains insight about what it means to be human. What's our purpose on earth, and what does it mean to live a good life? C.S. Lewis once said this about Christianity, and I think the same thing is true of the Bible. He writes this: I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. In other words, the Bible is a lens that God has provided that helps us see and understand the world. But I know someone might object and say, well, you still haven't answered the question. Why should the Bible be that lens? Why can't I just use reason or science, which aren't based on authority, but on things that we can observe and prove? Well, first of all, let me point out this, that reason isn't a foundation like that. See, all reason is based on some other foundation, and we all reason based on beliefs that we can't prove. Even when we doubt from a foundation of beliefs that we assume, but we can't prove. Second, even the science that we believe is actually based on authority. See, you haven't observed everything that we learn through science. Chances are you've never split an atom or looked at the human genome. And even the scientists that have done those particular things take most of what they believe about science on the authority of other scientists. And that's not a negative, that's just how all learning, including science, works. Now, I don't want to make the Bible and science seem like enemies. I don't believe they are. But the questions of meaning are questions that science, as great as it is, can't answer for us. In fact, the nature of science is that it changes all the time. Again, that's not a negative, it's a strength. Science adjusts when old interpretations no longer work. And that's great for what it's for, to explain the natural world. But it's not great as a foundation for life. But the Bible has provided consistent answers for thousands of years and in countless cultures. The truth is that while the world changes and our knowledge changes, human nature really hasn't changed since the beginning of human history. And the Bible has provided satisfying answers for thousands of years in virtually all human cultures it's come into contact with. Now, of course, that doesn't prove that it's true, but it does prove that it's worth checking out. So if you don't look at your life through the lens of the Bible, what lens do you use? If it's another religion, that's one thing. But if you're like most, it could be just whatever sounds good to you right now, whatever is spiritually or politically fashionable today. If that's the case, then you're really just your own authority, or our culture is the authority. And so, is trusting your own knowledge, or intuition, or our current culture the way it is an adequate foundation for life? Or might it be better to learn to understand a way that has provided purpose, direction, and meaning to people from virtually every culture from east to west, north to south, across hundreds of generations? Why not look into it and give it a try?